Hey, my name is Josie, and welcome to the Mental Health Therapist Hub, a podcast for therapists by a gal who's been there and that teaches therapists every week. In this very first episode, I want to take the time to introduce myself, to share why I'm starting this podcast, how I got here, what I really hope to get out of having a podcast and being able to share what I know with others. So let's start from the very beginning. My name is Josie. I use she, her pronouns. Now I am a group practice owner for a mental health practice in Colorado that specializes in identity-based and relationship trauma. So that means that we see individuals, couples, and families that are really focused on helping communities better understand those who are around them. We believe that relationships are at the center of who we are. And because they're at the center of who we are, it impacts the way that we move through the world. It impacts the way we see ourselves. So when we're able to sit with people and really help them put those pieces together to be able to solve communication issues in their relationships, to be able to work through familial problems, to be able to work through self-identity and self-discovery, we're able to do so from this very strong backbone. I also am an adjunct professor in the School of Social Work at the University of Denver, and in teaching there, it let me know that I really love sharing what I know. But let me not get ahead of myself. I'm going to start at the very beginning. I am originally from Anaheim, California. My family is from Ghana in West Africa, and I am so proud to be Ghanaian. And I think being Ghanaian is a real asset and really caters to who I am as a therapist. In my family, I grew up in a multi-generational household for most of my childhood, and I saw my family work together as a team to navigate a country and a society that wasn't built with them in mind. And they did it, and they did it well, and they raised a bunch of us, and they helped us become real people who love to give back. In my generation, there are business people, there are teachers, there are nurses, there are social workers like myself, marriage and family therapists, and I think it really speaks to the contribution of our family. In this, I do want to make sure that I thank them because they are a big part of the reason why I am who I am. And in that, they knew me when I was very little. I was a kid, and still am as a person, if I'm just going to be very honest with you, that is just really determined when I put my mind to something. Sometimes I feel like I'm very close to giving up, but then I pick it up again and I just keep kind of pushing and going. And that started from being a child. Learning and reading comprehension was just really hard for me. But I loved to teach. So what I would do is I would line up my stuffed animals on my bed, and I would bring my homework, and I would teach my stuffed animals what I learned in school that day. And my mom, being a teacher, would see this, and honestly, she really encouraged it. She made me feel really good about having that skill. And she really fostered my love of teaching and sharing what I know, which got to the point of when it came time for her to write her national board certification, I was editing her paper in third grade as an 8-year-old, checking for capitalization, checking for periods, and I would take it back to her with real edits. And she would show her teacher friends, and they would all be really surprised at the fact that I was so intentional on teaching and so intentional on helping. And doing that for my mom is probably one of my favorite memories with my mom. And it's one of the things that I love the most about my childhood. It's something that I look back to, and it let me know that I started from a really solid place when it came to being a helper. As I grew, of course, I became a teenager, and being a teenager, we all have our little sense of rebelliousness. Well, I don't know, bad habit is the word, but I had this trend of saying, I'm going to do this thing. And my parents saying, are you you sure that's a good idea? And me being like, well, I don't know, figure it out. And sometimes they would flat out say no, and I would do it anyway. An example was becoming a drum major in my high school marching band. I loved it, but it was my first opportunity to really be the human in the front of the room. I think as a kid, I was like always pretty ready to just jump in and try something new. And I wasn't really afraid of risk, but I think it was the first time that I had a group of people behind me. And it let me know that I always wanted to make them better. I always wanted to make them stronger. I was not the head drum major. Let's me be very real about that. There was someone who was in the head drum major position who was way more qualified than me. I moved to that high school in the 10th grade and just kind of shot my way through into that. But that person had really done her time and was a phenomenal musician and ended up doing music in college. But that's tangential. But in leading this team of flute players, I was a flute and piccolo player and a drum major, I realized that regardless of the fact that I had started a year later than everybody else, regardless of the fact that I had played flute for years and years, I was more focused on the team being better than just me being good. And yes, there were some things that I did for myself. I loved getting a solo and being able to do all of those things. Yes, those were all nice. I'm not going to sit here and say I was just giving the whole time, but there was this piece of me that just loved to help and loved to see folks grow. And my band directors really fostered that in me, and they made me better. And in making me better, it helped me make the other flute players better. And so from high school, there was always just this part of like, I want to help people. And so when I was getting ready to go to college, I ended up applying to a bunch of UCs, a bunch of schools. I was in California. And I applied to University of California, Santa Barbara, thinking, yeah, you know, I mean, it'd be nice to get in, but I'm not going to sit here and think that I'm going to get in. It's too beautiful of a school. I don't think I'm going to get in. But then I did, which I'll get to the confidence piece too in a bit more time. But in getting in, one, I was shocked, but super excited. Out of all the UCs, it's genuinely between there and Berkeley. Those were the two places I really wanted to go. And so the fact that I got into Santa Barbara and going, I ended up meeting my very first social worker and like knowing that's what they were called when I was in Santa Barbara. I was part of a program as a student of color that got me some extra academic advising because of the intersectional identities that I had. And the advisor that I had then, Mr. Jones, I will always remember him. He took me under his wing. He took care of me in those 4 years. He's a big reason why I got through those 4 years. Those 4 years were really hard. My freshman year was the year where a mass shooting impacted our community, and that was my introduction to college. It's still a little tough to talk about. And in knowing and working really closely with that social worker, I realized that it could be a career where I can literally sit and talk to people and get to know people and be human with people and take all the interventions that I knew worked just in being a human being and be able to put a name on it and be able to make a career out of it. And he was the very first person to show me and my family, because he was also an African guy, and he would bring my family into the academic advising sessions, and my family would be behind me in the plan, and they loved him and he loved them, and it was just really community centered. And it was so focused on just this piece of knowing that there was a team behind me. There were folks rooting for me. There were folks who wanted me to succeed on that campus. And Mr. Jones was one of them. And that let me know that whatever he did, I wanted to, at some point in my life, do. And in his case, he was an MSW, he was a social worker, and he was working in an academic setting in higher ed. But I didn't major in psychology. I didn't major in anything related to mental health in my undergrad. I majored in feminist studies with a minor in history studying the African continent, especially in the mid to late 20th century in Ghana, West Africa, where my family is from. So I ended up really studying how those who helped their communities by feeding them, by being African market women, by selling folks what they needed and taking it to them, impacted the very backbone of that society. And so I was able to do an ethnographic study on my grandmother, who was one of those women who took food, who took supplies, who took things that people needed in their everyday lives and sold them in order to be able to provide for my mom and all of her siblings and be able to give her family what they needed. It showed me that there are so many different ways to help. Helping doesn't come in a one size fits all manner. It doesn't show up in the exact same way every time. And that's perfectly okay. Different people come into our lives at different seasons, at different times, to be able to help us get to where it is that we need to go. And in studying that and in studying that degree, I realized the power of community. And I realized that helping is beyond just giving someone a pat on the back or even giving them a hug, which those things are great. Don't get me wrong. Those are awesome ways to be able to help someone. But it meant that we really need to meet people where they are, support them in what they need, and help them get there and have them lead that story. In studying the ethnographic trajectory of my family through studying African market women, I realized that my grandmother's direct actions impacted my mom's direct actions and what she did, which then impacted my direct actions and what I did. And the fact that we all three were helpers in our own way. We wanted to make sure we did it, and we didn't do it in a performative way. And when I say performative, I mean we're not doing it so that we're able to just go out and say, hey, I helped someone, give me a pat on the back. It was really about being that background player, that cheerleader that's just wanting our society, our communities to just get better and better, and just being a strong backbone and having that be where we hold a lot of our pride. So it's made a really big difference being in that major, and it let me know that being a helper is a huge part. So a theme is being a helper, which I'm going to keep talking on. And in my junior year of college, I discovered an office on campus that's whole role was to provide student support, advocacy, and case management to students on campus. And so I applied. I worked in that office. I worked as essentially a case manager, being able to get folks resources that were in the community. And this was a whole student office. It was like in student government. It was like covered by student fees. It was embedded into the community. And so I would meet with students, see what struggles they had, like sitting with them in an office, like a therapist sits with clients in an office. And I would let them know what was in the community. And I connected with what was in the community in Santa Barbara. And I knew and got to know and became a continuous learner of what people needed and what they were looking for. And that was one time in my life where I really felt passionate about what I was doing. And I thought at the time, it would be really cool to do this as a career, but I don't know. Like, I see Mr. Jones, and I know he has an MSW, but maybe this is impossible. So let me just live out this dream fully now. So what I did was I ran to run the office. So it essentially was like a student body election. I didn't run up against anybody. Nobody wanted the job. Fun fact. But so I ran solo, and I had a cute campaign, the cute campaign board. I think I might post the board because I still have pictures of it. And I had my pictures, and it was like Josie for SAG, Student Advocate General. And it was a time when like Orange is the New Black was super popular. So I was like, Black is the new SAG. And I thought it was so cool, and I thought it was so cute. I had a campaign manager. It was a whole thing. And I was so excited to lead a team. And when I won, I had a team of 24 people working under me. I was 21 years old when I started, and we were all college students in this office. I had a chief of staff, a deputy chief of staff, multiple caseworkers, multiple community organizers, marketing person. Like I had like a whole team and a budget and a thing, and it ended up paying for my senior year of college. It was a pretty phenomenal opportunity. And in leading that, especially as the first Black female in that position, I was really able to make it my own. I was really able to figure out what it looked like to give to community in a way that was so focused on the development of everyone, but especially students of color, especially those who were on the margins, those who experienced minoritization being in Santa Barbara, California, those who felt that sense of isolation, feeling alone in the community. I wanted to very much so represent them. And even though my 4 years of college were not easy, they were not academically easy, I was not a 4.0 college student. I'm going to say that right now. It made me who I am today. I thought at the time I was just living out a dream. I thought I was just living out this thing where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this as a career, so let me just kind of get it all out now. And it was really only just the beginning. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what made that difference. I didn't know that being a social worker, being a therapist looked kind of similar to this. I wasn't doing therapy, but we were doing case management. Did we do it perfectly? Absolutely not. If I could go back, there'd be so many things I would do differently leading in that office and working in that office, but I'm glad that I did that. I think I just really learned about who I am and who I wanted to become. So that chapter closed. I graduated from college in 2017, and I thought I'm going to go and do something that I really never saw myself doing, which was moving up to the mountain in the middle of nowhere in Estes Park, Colorado, where elk walk by, and teach at a school for youth whose traditional learning systems were not serving them well. And so they came from all over the country. They came from New York, from LA, from the Valley, from Anaheim. These students look like me. They look like me in high school. They sounded like me. They talked like me. And in many ways, I found that I tried to really set a high academic bar because I knew they could be great. And that's the way that I wanted to help them. I was the teaching fellow who would go in with the colored pen and correct every punctuation, every grammar mistake, wording, spelling mistake, every phrasing mistake, every little thing. As their social studies teacher in an environment that was focused on project-based learning, I did my best to really challenge them the way Mr. Jones challenged me, the way my band directors challenged me, because without them, I would have not been in that position to be able to do that well and be able to confidently know that I was giving back. And in that giving back, I built beautiful relationships with those students and beautiful relationships with those staff, which some I'm still connected to today. And in teaching there, I thought, okay, I'm going to probably have a career as a teacher. And I'm perfectly happy with that. Like, that's great. I'm still going to be kind of hitting that helping person parts that I thought that I wanted to be. But then when I was there, I met the mental health fellow. And when I met her, she was also a social worker. She also was I believe, a licensed master social worker, and she had trained in New York, and she was here doing her fellowship. And when I told her just some of the past experiences I talked about in this episode and on this podcast, she looked at me, she was like, have you considered a master's in social work? You've kind of got to put your foot in already. Like, maybe you could do it. And I told her I don't have a bachelor's in social. I didn't even know a bachelor's in social work was a thing. Like, I can't get into a master's in social work. I was so convinced. But she sat and helped me apply to masters in social work programs and masters in education programs. And she was really, really diligent and really, really cared and really, really helped me and really made me better. Adri, if you ever watch this, please know you are a huge reason why I am a social worker today, and I am so grateful for you. Her help taught me how to help. And it was the second person who taught me what it meant to be a social worker, what it meant to show up. Show up when you don't feel like it, show up after a long day of working, show up and when we have so many other things to do, show up and read a paper for somebody else, and we're living in this big old house together with all these other fellows. Just show up. And I put in my applications and I got in. I got into the University of Denver Graduate School of Social Work, and I got into the University of Denver Morgridge College of Education. Like, I was shooketh. That's the right word for it. I was so shocked that I got in. And I remember running and telling her, like, I got in. And everyone was so excited for me, but she was so excited for me. And I feel like there's no amount of thank yous I can give her and give Mr. Jones for showing me and introducing me to social work. And in them helping me, I decided, because I'm a slightly indecisive person, fun fact, I can't decide between ice cream flavors, so I'll get both. That's the type of human I am. I thought people do double majors all the time in college. Like, what's 2 master's degrees at the same time? It can't be that bad. And plus, I have scholarships, so putting them together, I won't be paying too much more. Actually, I might be even paying the same amount that I would just to get one of these degrees. Like, I'm going to enroll in both and make a plan to finish both in 3 years. And boy, did I not know what I signed up for. It was tough. Master's degrees are specialized degrees. They don't have the general education requirements that undergrad degrees have. Like, it's a different ballgame. So doing 2 at the same time, running across the street, because the graduate school social work at DU is on one side of the street, then you cross the street and the School of Education is on the other side of the street. Fun fact. I ended up running back and forth. I did my whole first year in social work. I did my second year where I did the combo where I had to run back and forth from each building. And then my third year, I did full education and I finished all degrees. I had to submit a plan each quarter about what I was going to do to be able to finish in these 3 years. It was called a flexible dual degree. I do not recommend it unless you are incredibly passionate about what you were doing, because it is not for the faint of heart. I was able to finish it, and I did very tough internships in both, very tough jobs, and I worked multiple jobs while I was in grad school to be able to sustain myself. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, was seeing me go to all sorts of lengths to be able to get these degrees done, and I know he was very worried about me in terms of getting all of that done, but he and my family saw me do it and saw me finish. And when I was in the process of finishing my MSW, I realized from the more clinical classes I took, I realized I wanted to become a therapist. Being a social worker and being a therapist, they are different things. Let's make sure we keep that straight. Are there skills that overlap? Absolutely. But are they identical? No, they are not. They are not the same by any stretch of the imagination. I wanted to be a good therapist because my training, even though I'm not going to knock any school, but it wasn't a therapy program. It was a social work program. And so I thought if I want to be a therapist, I have to learn how to be a therapist. So in the midst of finishing my MSW and finishing that, getting that all done, I added a postmaster's certification that was equivalent to a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to be a therapist, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it well. And something that I learned from Mr. Jones, something I learned from my band director, something I learned from Adri is if I'm going to do the thing, I need to do it well. And I also learned that from my family. If I'm going to put my mind to something, give it your best shot. And so I thought by getting this external training in marriage and family therapy, I would be able to give therapy its fair shot. It wasn't without investment, financial, emotional, time investment, and it added essentially a year onto school. So I was finishing my master's in education, and then I had another year to finish the MFT. And in finishing that up, I felt very confident in my ability to sit with folks, and the same joy that I had in being a student advocate general and being a case manager in college, it came back. And I knew I was in the right place. And I knew I was doing the right thing. And I knew what I was doing was going to hit the goals that I had in building a career. And even though I was very, very young figuring this out, I was 25, 6 finishing. I started DU at 23 because it took 3 years. I realized that I want to be a therapist long term because the connections that I built with clients reminded me of sitting with my stuffed animals and just feeling like I wasn't performing by any means, but I could just be myself, be with other people, let them be themselves and get what they need. And I did just such imaginative play as a kid that it just felt like that dream of being able to do that with real people was coming true. It let me know that I could be like Mr. Jones and be able to give back, be able to show up, be able to make a big difference, and be able to really show up for my community. And so, as I wrap up, I'm going to answer 3 last questions. What I believed about myself then, when I first became a therapist, what I believe myself now, and what I want to believe about myself when I hit all of the goals. I have my license in clinical social work, and I am 2 exams away from being a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed addictions counselor in the state of Colorado, with the goal of being able to be licensed in California, in Georgia, and South Carolina, where all my family are. So that if I ever need to be there, I can be there. There are parts of me that want to get a PhD in clinical psychology. What I believed about myself when I first started was, I hope this isn't too good to be true. I hope I'm actually going to be able to not save anybody from anything, because I think that's absolutely terrible to try and save people from their situations. That's not my job. I want to be able to give folks the resources, the tools, the connection to community, the connection to themselves and with another human in the room so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. I probably couldn't have said it that well back then, but I think that's what I wanted. And I was just so worried that I wouldn't be able to do that. I was so worried I was going to be a crappy therapist and that I would just be wasting everybody's time and my own. And what I've learned is I'm actually a pretty good therapist, which I don't think I say a lot. I always am the person to say, like, I just need to learn, I need to get better, I need to grow, which is so true. I believe I'm always going to be learning and growing. I don't consider myself ever becoming what folks call like a master therapist, or think that there's a lot that I can learn from those who are ahead of me and those who are behind me. But I think I'm doing an okay job, which isn't easy for me to say, but I think I'm doing an okay job now. And I think that's part of what I'm believing about myself now. I think I have a high bar for myself and a high bar for who I'm becoming. And I truly believe that I now am able to accomplish so much. And in starting this podcast and creating these resources, I'm able to fully go back to being that 21-year-old that just dug in and helped people, to be the old 23-year-old, 24-year-old becoming an MFT for the first time, being the human that I am proud of becoming, and knowing that I'm evolving and I'm growing. And the person that I want to be in the future and what I want to believe about that person is that not only is there so much room to grow, there's room to do things outside of the therapy room like this, where I'm able to share my experiences, share my stories, share how others have been impacted by this amazing field that we are in, and really challenge myself to be a better teacher, to be a better supervisor, to be a better therapist overall. And my hope is that the person in the future is able to look back to who I am now, and look back to the little kid and the high schooler and the college student and the post-grad student and the grad student, and just be really proud of that. Because sometimes I wrestle with it. I wrestle with whether my experiences are enough and whether I'm good enough. And of course, I didn't go through all of the experiences in this podcast, but I really hope that I'm able to be the person that I can be proud of. I can be proud of my children seeing. I have twins, by the way, twin daughters who are 8-year-old. Being a mom that they're proud of, being a wife that I can be proud of. With that, I wrap up the first episode. I'm so grateful for you listening to the Mental Health Therapist Hub. This, again, is a podcast for new therapists by a gal who's been there and who teaches new therapists every week. Thanks so much, and hope to see you in the next episode.